Welcome to the news. So yeah, today we're talking about Sonic Hedgehog, the video game by Sega. Yeah, it's an interesting correlation to the mindset regarding doing some future branding, I guess you could say, and also trying to transition people into the realm of like an endless conceptual mindset regarding chasing golden rings, chasing golden rings that are circles, that are also symbols of like businesses, golden rings that are businesses that are circles, cyclical cycles that are endless, that are infinite cycles. Oh yeah, welcome to the news. Stay to the end to find out how we make it there. Oh yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog is like a video game. It's a video game that also corresponds to transitioning in a transistor radio that in essence is a configuration of a golden circle, a golden ring. In essence, it's like a signal. It's like developing also sonic connections to all people in the world. Sonic connections, meaning like sound, meaning like frequency in essence. Sonic, to be able to, like Sonic the Hedgehog, to be able to develop transistor radios for all people using the rings. Basically the rings, like in Sonic the Hedgehog, the video game, the way that you beat Sonic the Hedgehog in the video game is you have to get to the end of all the levels and successfully pass through the obstacle courses that are sort of present in such things. But one of the caveats is that you have always rings. Rings is what gets you to the end of the levels in essence, and you can always sort of like not lose the game because you can always just lose your rings first, which are like an analogous of money, basically money. So you can always just like lose your money basically in this world, I guess you could say, and it's like a video game also in the world because in essence it's not something to do with a personal necessarily, a personal issue, like meaning like the something that goes beyond the skin necessarily, as long like having a competent intention regarding well-being for people in terms of the mindset and the connection to business, and the purpose of business is the purpose of business, meaning to try to do good by others and for others, using business as a vehicle to do that, and in staying within those guidelines is like staying within the guidelines of a sport in essence. Like those are the rules of the sport more or less, so that like you are always just meant to continue to stay on course to try to help and do good for and by people in essence. And like this kind of transitions into the mindset of the overall transistor radio of how we're trying to get to the end of like this ideation of this idea, which corresponds to Sonic the Hedgehog as like connection, using music for example to connect with all people in the world, because in essence what rings stand for in the Sonic the Hedgehog video game is like little dolls that basically are trapped inside of the rings. Actually, like the rings actually are stand for as symbols of like not little dolls, but they're little characters that are people that basically are characters. They're like little bunny rabbits and such things that Sonic the Hedgehog is saving from the evil boss. The evil boss is trying to like keep track of the little animals, the little characters, and try to keep hold of them, keep them in his own like negative way, sort of stuck in a negative spiral. So he follows so that the little animals follow like the evil boss's command. And Sonic the Hedgehog is trying to release all of their mindsets from this evil energy, this evil realm basically. And so that's what we're trying to do as Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios also is aligned with Sonic the Hedgehog and the Sonic the Hedgehog mentality by leveraging the transistor radio and the connection, the interconnection between all of us and our mentalities, all of our minds, all of our brains, all of our mindsets, which as a collectively, as all humanity, as all humans, every single human in the world is much more strong than individual states, individual nations, individual countries, because we have this innate infinity, which is symbolized by the rings, the golden rings in the Sonic the Hedgehog video game that corresponds to transistor radios, that also corresponds to being in a hypnotic state. And being in a hypnotic state is something that can come from necessarily like just being half awake and half asleep. Half awake and half asleep, for example, there are famous scientists and famous like inventors, for example, that would fall asleep and go to sleep with basically like metal balls in their hands, and they would hold these metal balls, and once they would come to a place of sleep and rest and hypnosis almost, they would drop the metal balls because they would have fallen asleep in a chair, and then when the balls hit the pan that's underneath the metal balls, then they would wake up in a hypnotic sleep and be able to have like a transistor presence, a transistor transition presence between like the night or the the unknown and then the conscious, the subconscious and the conscious. There's more of a connection between these two realms in this like hypnotic state of a subconscious connection, if you will. And so they would write things down after the metal balls would hit the pan. Once they would fall asleep, and they would be half asleep as they were doing that. And so in essence, we're leveraging a subconscious conscious connection today in the essence of trying to develop a transistor radio out of these rings, out of these metal golden rings, these golden rings that are inside of all human beings as well, to try to be able to basically see life in this realm of spiritual finance, if you will, because this interest like corresponds to the essence of connecting to, like I was talking about last night, every human being has their own cryptocurrency, every human being having their own, being full of their own sauce, their own medicine, their own sort of unique blend of whatever it is that they are, to be able to make them exist on the planet as like a functional asset, as an asset energy, because just to exist in of itself is an asset. It's necessary to eat food and consistently eat food to be able to grow as an asset and continue to grow and be able to be able to nourish that asset mindset and that asset vibe. It's like we're trying to make a Whole Foods, like basically to try to nourish all the human beings in the world, and we're trying to do that by leveraging the ideation that the potential for consistent growth is ideally an ideation that's viable by developing like kind of like a Whole Foods, like a symbol for like a Whole Foods store, like a Whole Foods store. Yesterday we were talking about an art gallery, and in essence like developing this brand Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios into like an art gallery, and like sonic connections, like making music, making sounds that connect and resonate into the music market, if you will, into this sound making market, to try to develop more sounds in the future, connects with the ideation of like a Whole Foods, just to try to nourish with this mindset, with this podcast, somewhat sometimes semi, like trying to leverage the connection of a sonic connection and give these golden rings to the mindset of people through this ideation that they themselves can hypnotize and transition themselves into a half state, half awake sleep, and use these as transistor radios, these rings, these mindset mentality rings, as transistor radios, to try to keep themselves in the right mindset, in the right circle and cyclical place and state of mind and state of being, to try to stay within the mindset that's similar to, like, there's a board game called Candyland. It's a board game called Candyland, and like this podcast is trying to bring about the mindset of like the world is like the game of Candyland, in essence, bringing about metaphysical things that aren't necessarily real as real, and feeding the mind, feeding the brain, feeding the ideation that people are assets, that everyone is an asset more or less, because the essence of energy in of itself, of staying above ground, staying above the ground and walking around, and or just existing one way or another as a human functioning like chemistry process, that it continues to exist and be a functional machine, is something that's an asset process, because it exists, it's above ground, and therefore it's continuing to function, and it continues to take on food, which continues to nourish, and that asset continues to nourish that asset. And so this cyclical cycle that's symbolized by the ring of Sonic the Hedgehog, so that everybody is this ring that we're trying to free through, and by giving it good energy and like leveraging that, so the luster, the mentality, the metallic nature of this golden ring can shine brighter, shine cleaner, shine truer, and be polished, and be so every human in the world can be their golden ring self in the most efficient, effective way possible. That we're leveraging this Sonic the Hedgehog mindset to be able to leverage the transistor radio through being half awake, half asleep, and giving everybody this ability to be able to tap into their own consciousness, to see that they're in the game of Candyland through this podcast, for example, to see the ability to be able to get this resonance, to get this sonic connection, which means sound, which means frequency. Just like my voice is sound, it's sonic, it's frequency. It's going from this podcast into hopefully the ear of somewhere, of some source of a human being, to try to nourish the mindset, the mentality of something similar to the game of Candyland, like leveraging the mindset of the game of Candyland, meaning spiritual finance is like the game of Candyland, which is a board game that makes everything like candy, like there's candy everywhere, and people can see this candy because of this podcast, because being able to leverage the mindset and the mentality that spiritual finance leverages the conceptualization of assets being everywhere, and you halfway have to dream up of a lot of these visualizations at the same time, by first knowing that they're there, first knowing the difference between the connection between the subconscious and the conscious, to acknowledge that they're there, and then be able to see them and leverage them in all these podcast episodes, so to speak, and be able to try to add them up into your own spiritual finance deduction, or ability to be able to see your own Candyland, if you will, the game of Candyland, which just means certain aspects of assets that are like within the planet, to be able to like find them, look for them, track them down, and then develop your own visualization tools so that you yourself can hypnotize yourself and hold metal balls as you go to sleep, to be able to like connect with your own conscious and subconscious at the same time, to grow your own transistor frequency radio, to grow your own connection to the frequencies, to grow your own connection to the sonic nature of communication between this brand, Dinky Tech, Change for Game Studios, and also back and forth between you, your own brand, your own special currency, your own special sauce, your own special cryptocurrency, whatever makes every human being unique as they are, to be able to connect this global transistor radio, this global connection to a global transistor radio, to develop hopeful, continuous, ongoing positive processes and positive food, positive nourishment, positive sonic nourishment, positive sonic food and nourishment, so that everybody has the ability to leverage their own transistor radio in and out of their own subconscious, back and forth, to be able to grow their own process, grow their own business, grow their own asset mindset by leveraging the Candyland mindset and visualizing the Candyland mindset, the connection between Sonic the Hedgehog and Candyland, the board game, to be able to try to add value and bring more assets and asset mindsets to more people, so that they get the ideation and the focus and the ideal outlook of themselves, of the rest of the world, of all human beings in the world, that all are assets, that are all are precious, that we all are significantly, uniquely aligned in a unique acknowledgement of our uniqueness, to be able to bring together the global philanthropy energy grid, which connects all of us connectively like a global marketplace of global assets, of global cryptocurrencies, all shining brightly like global golden rings shining among the sun and shining back and forth within the sun, together, all of us as humans, and as well to develop the global good deeds economy, as well as the global philanthropy energy grid, shining off of the golden rings that connect us all as humans in the Sonic the Hedgehog video game, through the transistor radio connections to the subconscious, in and out, and through and into, to be able to develop the game of Candyland for humans and humanity, if you will, to be able to bring about the luster, to be able to shine a brighter shine through the golden rings, connecting all humanity and humans. And that's all for now. Thanks again, Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye, peace. Bye. And let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's push for world peace every single day. And also, let's remember to try to clear the animal shelters. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world, because we can foster all the shelter animals. We can adopt all the shelter animals in the world. We can rescue all the shelter animals in the world. And we can also hire the shelter animals as healers. We can also hire the shelter animals as healers all throughout the world, so that they don't have to be mistreated in animal shelters. And we can clear the animal shelters, and we can hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities. Hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities, because they also work for free, and they could use better purpose and use better jobs and be able to add value and be therapeutic energy for humans and humanity, to help us be more harmonious as humans and among humanity, for all the animals in the world, to clear all the animal shelters, to try to get them to transition their energy in terms of therapeutic energy to all humans, so we can clear the animal shelters to add value to humanity in terms of harmony, if possible. And let's push for world peace every single day and clear the animal shelters every day. That's all for now. Thanks again, Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye.